Please put your hands together for Shopify's Head of Partnerships Asia Pacific, Rhys Furner.
G'day. Hey everyone. Are we pumped? Has it been a good couple of days? Yeah, I like it. There's a few Canadians hiding at the back who have done a lot of organising that deserve a lot of credit. One's right in the middle here, actually. I don't want to embarrass her in front of everyone. But a huge shout out to the team for putting this together, and I hope you've all found it really good. So we have a star-studded panel. No pressure, guys. And we know we're the last session, so we're going to try to bring a bit of fun, bring a bit of energy, get everyone pumped up and on a high. But before we do, one of the best things about APAC is the diversity. And so I want to do a quick exercise. Raise your hand if you're from Australia. We're all the Aussies. Ooh. There we go. G'day. Good. What about the Kiwis? Kia ora. Yeah, a few Kiwis kicking around, always representing strongly. What about Japan? Yes. Konnichiwa. Hello. Plenty from Japan. Good representation. Singapore. Oh, a couple of hands. Vietnam. I know there's plenty from Vietnam. Yes, really good showing from Vietnam. Thanks for coming. India. Yeah, happy Diwali and well done on the cricket. Virat Kohli. Amazing innings here in Melbourne at the MCG just earlier in the week. So it's really cool. So the best thing about APAC is that it's super diverse, and the future of commerce is here in APAC, right? 50% of global e-commerce happens here in APAC. And so the future of commerce is actually going to be built by the people in this room. I think that's really damn awesome. Okay, so I know Blake earlier did a quick thing as well, but a quick raise of hands if you're a theme developer. Yeah, cool. App developers, where are you at? Yeah, very good showing. Agencies, where are the agency partners? Yeah, pretty solid on the agency partners. Okay, so we've got a really good, not only diversity in terms of where we're from and how commerce is done, but we've also got a fair bit of diversity in what we actually do in the ecosystem. And so the panel today is hopefully going to represent that panel. And so without further ado, to make some introductions, we've got Bo. Bo is from Createur, the Plus agency in Sydney. He's been in the ecosystem a really long time. And so a huge welcome to Bo, please. We've also got Olivia from MAUKAU. I hope I said that correct. Olivia has solely focused on Shopify since 2016. She's all the way over from France, so bonjour. Big welcome to Olivia. And last but not least, we've got Shashank, all the way from Bangalore, India. Shashank is the founder of PushOwl. Okay, I had a mind blank. PushOwl. And the cool thing about PushOwl is that Shashank has actually bootstrapped it since 2017, and it was recently acquired. And so we're going to break down that experience and journey a little bit today. And so please welcome Shashank. Awesome. So to kick us off, what I'd love to know, we might go to you to kick us off, Bo. How did you get started with Shopify and why?
I think mainly, so 10 years ago was when we started the agency. We were three freelancers who were kind of reaching the limit of what we were able to do on our own. And beyond just working on websites, we sort of felt like e-commerce was the place to be. We worked with e-commerce for a while as consultants, but to actually build e-commerce sites was really interesting because e-commerce means there's actually money coming in. You're not building brochure sites, you're not building random solutions. So we thought this was a really good place to start. And we started in marketing, funnily enough, because we sort of thought, okay, well, let's see what's out there and which platforms we can work with. And we're sort of victims of our own success in a way, that we would send people to sites and they're either custom or built by or powered by other platforms, and we really didn't want to have to worry about whether there's uptime or are we sending too many people or the tech debt. So we landed on Shopify in the end. We tried a few and we really liked the cultural fit, and it did the job. Every time we sent people there, the Shopify site stood up. And we decided that was the way we should really go. And I think we built the 1004th Shopify store. They used to have ID numbers in the URLs, and yeah, really went from there.
I actually remember my first call with you, Bo. I don't know whether you do. I think we had a half an hour call and we ended up chatting for a good hour and a half, which was awesome. Olivia, how did you find your way to Shopify?
So my business partner and I, we met in 2016, and we met via our university network. And basically, I was looking for a internship. I originally wanted to be in advertising, and then I met this guy right there at the front, who's currently filming me, and and he'd been on the merchant site on Shopify for a family member, and basically we met up, and he was like, Shopify, it's the future. I know it's not French, and it's not available in French. It's not open source, but it's the future. And the tech there, everything, all of that. There's just so many reasons to go on Shopify. And we knew that it was going to be a tough call because obviously French people hate anything that isn't in French. So originally that was one of the issues. But I think we bet on the winning horse, and it's been like that since 2016 now.
Fantastic. Shashank?
So for me, my journey on Shopify was a bit of a coincidence and also a bit of a necessity. Like it's like 50-50. So back in 2015, when I had quit my job, I had actually stumbled upon Shopify's documentation because I was trying to build a messenger startup, which didn't work out. Fast forward 2 years, I was building PushOwl, but it was like the PushOwl was built for any website in the world. I'd even built a WordPress plugin, nothing was working. And coincidentally, Shopify started their team in India, and in fact, in the same co-working space where I was working. So I stumbled upon 2 partner managers, Vargav and Namra, back then, and they talked about, hey, you can build for Shopify, and it might just work. And there was also a necessity angle because I was just a one-person developer. Like when you're trying to run a SaaS company, you need to get things installed, and usually it's a manual process when it's a random website. But Shopify had this amazing API called script tag, which would auto install your application on the store, which means that less of support. Secondly, especially from India, we had an issue with, or even in a lot of countries, we have issues with payment. We don't have Stripe over there. And then Shopify does this amazing work that it can collect, the credit card is already there, and it can collect the payment and send it back wire transfer or PayPal you. And so all these things just made building a SaaS on Shopify super easy. And that, with a really, really small team, you can build value. And so that's the reason Shopify kind of happened. And it was supposed to be in the hacker journey of one person, but now it grew to a team.
Yeah, fantastic. I can't wait to break that down in a moment. And something that Olivia mentioned that stood out was that you took a punt on Shopify, right?
Yep.
And I think that a lot of people in this room resonate with that, right? Because Shopify's fit in all of the different markets varies so much, and commerce doesn't scale overly well, right? And so there's so many things that our partners do to help build that market for us. And so I'd love to hear from you. What's interesting about the French market? What makes it unique?
What makes it unique is, first things first, the French, they have this knowledge about the handmade. We have some of the best luxury houses in the world, if not the best, Dior, Yves Saint Laurent, Louis Vuitton, all of that, and we know how to make a quality product. What most French people don't know how to do is how to sell it online, but that's an issue that most agencies will encounter, showing the merchant how to actually sell their product. It's their product, but you're the one showing them how to sell it, kind of thing. So that's the one thing, and I think that's kind of common to many, many other markets. But another thing that is very particular to it, and maybe that will resonate with some people, is international expansion. I've seen very few, if any, at all, DNVBs that manage to successfully expand internationally, to be honest with you, because they tend to think, well, we know the way, so this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're not going to, create local content. We're not going to do this. Is our way to do it. So I think there's still room to grow when it comes to internationalization, to be honest. But that's very specific to it.
Very cool. And Shashank, you work with thousands of merchants now. I've lost track, and you can let us know in a sec. What do you see across all of the different markets, and what nuances? What are the differences?
So there is multiple angles. There's different industries in different markets. For example, if you look at North America or Canada, right, you have these new industries like vaping, hemp, etc. And the use cases over there are very different. Europe might have fashion brands largely. In India, Southeast Asia, you have all kinds of consumer brands, and local products being sold over there. Then there is also a change in behavior in terms of adoption. I typically see North America in very early adopters and different kind of products or tech they use. Then over time, when you see more case studies and maturity, then the other parts of the world start using the product. Another thing which I see is a lot of the markets are very much tech savvy because also human resources is expensive, so they depend on a lot of automations and tech. While you could see in some of the regions over here in APAC, because human resources is more viable, it could be even scaled with a lot of human power and less automations. So you would see these small nuances in different markets. There could be also language localization, another plays an impact. Certain markets adopt if your product is localized to that market. I was talking to some of the Japanese partners, and they mentioned they have a more affinity towards something which is localized towards their language. But it might not be so much true, even though Canada speaks French, but they can still go with the English version of it. So there are just like different levels of things, and depending on the perspective you choose, you'll see nuances in different markets.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually in Japan a couple of weeks ago for the Japanese friends here, and I saw Conveni in action, right? It's a convenience store pay, and there's so many interesting things that vary, and they're great opportunities for partners, and also the ACO Hub team here, who I know if they can throw a hand up if they're in here from Taiwan. There they are with the tax invoice for orders in Taiwan, right? And so there's so many of these funny little nuances that create opportunities for developers.
COD is really big in Japan as well. Like we were blown away. We did a big Japanese project, and it's just not a thing at all. Like no one does COD in Australia, but it's huge in Japan, and it's a really big part of the business. If you don't support it, you lose almost 60% of your sales.
That's
crazy,
right,
yeah.
and all throughout Southeast Asia and India as well. Yeah, absolutely. So Bo, while I've got you, talk us through a little bit about the developments you've seen in the ANZ market over the last 5 years. So you've been a partner for some time. Shopify has obviously grown exponentially here. We've seen a lot of innovation come out of Australia from the commerce side. So I'd love your take on some of those changes that you've seen.
Yeah, I think you were saying, Rhys, that we've got one of the highest levels of business ownership and entrepreneurship in the world in Australia per capita, and I think that really drove a lot of the uptake of things like Shopify that let people ride onto platforms when they wanted to do something new. There's a lot of self-serve happening on those platforms, but then there's all these inflection points and plateaus that you reach when you come onto a platform, especially if you're a lone merchant or a owner-operator or a pair of people. And I've noticed that really we've ridden that wave now, noticed that people have gone, okay, well, I've reached the inflection point. I've reached a zenith of what I can do in my own country. Going global is a big one. So we've got a lower population over here. So having to break out of that and actually serve a greater population, being ready for it before you actually reach that plateau has been really important. That we've noticed. We've helped a lot of Australian merchants. We've done 9, 10 region deployments for some merchants, and it's happened really quickly. Once they get to the second, obviously US is often the first outside of Australia market they want to service. But then once that happens and they see the growth, then obviously it has to go everywhere. You start talking about localization. So the idea of, I've noticed the development of multilingual, globalization, and then also, interestingly, a tech export. We, as Australians, we're well known for selling holes in the ground and animals overseas. We want to change that. I feel like that's a great thing to change, that we want to sell talent and technical expertise. This is a great way to do it. I'm seeing a lot of Australian companies be acquired by overseas companies. I'm seeing a lot of merchants be able to sell overseas divisions, and that, of course, is an export. That brings money here. We've got a lot of our partners over here who actually do work for US companies. That's all an export that Australia hasn't seen before, I think. Australian and New Zealand, but I think both of us have the same kind of ceiling. You can't only service your region, and that's amazing.
Yeah, you nailed it. 1 in 10 Aussies run a business, and I think it's about 1 in 11 Kiwis compared to 1 in 30 Americans and 1 in 35 Canadians. And so, yeah, rates of entrepreneurship here are really, really high. And traditional retail, right, it hasn't been killed by Amazon yet. And so many Aussies live near a Westfield. Those mid-tier retailers, I think, are really, really strong here. Fantastic. And actually, fun fact, retail spend in Australia is up 18% year over year. And so despite a lot of doom and gloom that we're hearing, around interest rates, inflation, war in Ukraine, etc., it's pretty interesting that retail is still up. So shifting gears a little bit, Shashank, I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got started with PushOwl. Like, talk us through those early phases, how you got it off the ground, how you got your first few customers.
So I was like, my background comes from engineering, so I really didn't know anything about marketing and building or distributing. So I was just like, in the initial days, just like coding and building stuff, and nothing was happening. And then one of the things which I was told, hey, you need to talk to the customers, but then you realize, how do you talk to the customers? One fantastic thing about Shopify was that there was already an online community built in, and there was these Facebook groups back in those days, now Discord, of course, right? And I started hanging around over there, just reading those customer comments, because I had this product built, but no one was using it. But then when I started reading this, I just realized there were so many other problem statements which the merchants had. So in fact, and as a developer, what I could do is, like, rather than talking, I still was doing building. So I built this tool which will allow Etsy merchants to move their reviews to Shopify. Quick tool. I said, you can either do it for $50, or you can use, if you use PushOwl, I'll do it for free. So those are like really, really hacky ways to get customers. I was also running out of money, because I had quit my job 2 years back. And then in the same community, there was this company called Store Tasker where I could be a freelancer. I thought maybe let me earn some money while doing a freelancing. So I have done freelancing before. And then also, I would pitch my customers, whoever I would just work with, can you use PushOwl, just give me feedbacks. Coincidentally, one of the customers happened to be SVP at Walmart, who was just taking a sabbatical, and he forever remained an advisor to me, throughout till the day of exit. He actually helped me over there. Then I read more comments on this community, and then hey, you could build these small tools. For example, merchants are trying to figure out, hey, which theme is my other store they love or is using, or what apps they're using. So I built these free tools there, and the whole idea was to just do good karma, and automatically, some of my really early first 100 customers just came through non-scalable ways, and that was actually happened because there was an ecosystem which I could leverage and facilitate. And the ecosystem still exists today. There's just so much engagement in this community that you can get your first 100 customers in a scratch and claw way if you just go out doing good karma, I think so, in the Shopify.
Yeah. And so you've sold your business, which I think deserves a round of applause, because that is epic. And interestingly, I've actually spoken to a number of developers here just over the last couple of days that have done the same. And so I think it's a really good example of Shopify trying to create more value than we capture ourselves. And so when you look back prior to being acquired, what were some of those foundational elements that got you there? Because no doubt there's people here in the room that would be eyeing that sort of exit off as well.
So Shopify app, I feel, is just a supercharged SaaS app because Shopify is taking care of a lot of the abstractions over there. But the foundation, which is great customer support, is always there. And that is, if you see, I think we are probably the only app which has 2,000 plus reviews and not a single one-star review, which is trying to, so customer support really, really forms the backbone of building any great company, which means that when you're doing good customer support, you're also getting a lot of early feedbacks from the customers. If you can iterate on that fast, you're just developing a great product. In fact, you're doing less work, because you're choosing to build only what is needed. So that's one foundation, I think, really good customer support. Another thing is because build a great product, ensure that you have good UX in practice, Shopify has these guidelines around, designing a great, now it's built for Shopify, right? So use those nuances and just building a nice user experience and not just hack around things, because these are real merchants making money. So you ensure that your tool is performant there. And other thing is I think is ensuring that your churn metrics are really, really you take control of that, because in early days you will see, you're getting these early customers, you're making money, but ensure that there is also, Shopify is a unique ecosystem because they're merchants from all segments, they're enterprise and they're small. So you could see a churn going down further. So have your good analytics built in-house. So, and ensure your pricings are right, which is expansion-based pricing, so that your numbers keep on growing. Because when a potential M&A or investment happens, these are the numbers which people look at. And you need to think about it before it really becomes a problem. People think about churn a lot later down the line, but you need to start thinking early.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Olivia, as part of your business, I know that you work with lots of apps, particularly Klaviyo. I think the Klaviyo team are here today, and I know you do a lot of Klaviyo stuff. Bit of a shout out for one of the sponsors there. So, how do you find the right apps? And to you, what does the right agency and technology partner collaboration really look like?
Yeah, so shout out to Klaviyo. What it looks like to me is basically, first things first, Shopify wouldn't be where it's at without its app ecosystem, right? It wouldn't be there. And you don't even have to be a partner, an expert in themes or anything. You could be even a partner and specialize in some apps like Matrixify, others. There are so many great ones that you can specialize in, right? But what I find is the most important in terms of collaboration is being aligned with specific goals, specific merchant goals, right? So you would have, it really depends on what the goal of the merchant is. You try to break it down into little pieces, but as long as the app is aligned with that, you're good. Because sometimes what I've noticed as an agency kind of thing is that some apps, they try to grow, scale super, super fast. And so they'll hire loads and loads of people. And sometimes we end up knowing the app better than the salespeople that are trying to sell it to the merchant. So it gets very frustrating because we've been there before. So I think as long as you're developing an app, you also have to keep in mind that you're within an ecosystem, and it's a Shopify one, right? So you have to know Shopify. You can never stray away too far from Shopify itself. You have to realize that it's e-commerce at the end of the day. You're doing it for a merchant, you're doing it for one very specific goal. So never forget about that, basically. That's it.
Fantastic. And Bo, I know you're a huge fan of microservices architecture. You've spoken about it at Shopify events, and that often requires a lot of custom apps. And so how do you get that balance right between custom apps versus off-the-shelf apps?
Yeah, and it's a pretty tough call at sometimes, because when you're working with a merchant, especially in an early stage development, you don't want to suggest a custom app for absolutely everything they do. It makes it seem like you're just trying to keep the ecosystem inside yourself, and that you're trying to charge them for everything that you do as well. So from that point of view, you know, there is a place for custom apps. We do find them more performant in certain circumstances. But I think if I was to give any advice to app developers who want to work with an integration or a microservice or something where an agency is trying to integrate them, is to think about not just, and we understand, by the way, an app developer's biggest market is a merchant directly. Quick install, less customer support, let it just work. What happens though is sometimes that causes app developers to brute force that system, right? So then, you know, you'll have 3 instances of jQuery running to support those different apps. And so I guess what I ask for in that sense, before we have to go custom to an app developer, is consider all the touch points of your app, consider all the use cases of your app. Hydrogen makes that really interesting at this stage as well, is to integrate with that. You're really just injecting an endpoint for what you're trying to service us with. Do talk to your agencies, because every app developer wants an agency to sell their product. Consider where it's being sold. It's not just necessarily being one-click installed on a theme. Sometimes we actually need it to talk to other services, and to avoid us having to build custom apps, we do ask that you communicate with us on things like performance and communicate where your app hits other services in that ecosystem.
Yeah. And so, Shashank, let's say you're an app developer. You've followed Bronte's really good advice yesterday on some opportunities in the ecosystem. You've published your app. You've got your first customers. They're coming on board. How are you driving growth? So how do you look at growth from an app development perspective, and particularly now post-acquisition? Yeah, how are you finding those ways to consistently onboard new merchants?
So there is a concept of so acquisition is basically, now you're trying to get customers. I think you need to build a really, really reliable brand. You know, especially as now more Shopify companies are scaling up. So you need to one of the things which you do is like do case studies. Case studies are a great example of showing, you know, it's more beyond features. You know, your app can actually drive really, really value, and these are like testimonials which you can create. And this is something which other, you know, companies before they onboard you look into it. And like now there are also more opportunities on the, you know, the app store. You know, things keep on changing. There's now built for Shopify. Take that little effort. You know, we were also guilty of, you know, building an app which was unique and lived out of the Shopify ecosystem. But now we understand the whole value of, you know, building for the merchants. So you take that pain, you know, keep up with the trends, ensure that, you know, and once you hit the right checkboxes, the ecosystem is built in a way that it automatically gets you those merchants. Like sometimes we just tend to ignore and just want to sell, but also build those things. Build a really good relationship with the agencies over time, you know, when you're here. And I realized like one of the things, you know, one of the like agencies are also valuing more what you need to convince them and educate them what the value which your app provides. Don't talk about affiliates, etc. Like, you know, those things really, I feel, come down the line. You need to give them, you know, educate how, you know, they are basically your power users at the end of the day, right? Like, and thinking from that perspective, just a mindset difference helps you grow your app. You know, you leverage the partner ecosystem what we have over here. to scale your app. So
Yeah, I often say internally, agencies sit very high in the chain of influence, don't they? Because they get so deep with the merchants that they understand their needs so well, and therefore their voice is quite authoritative, right, in what sort of app stack makes sense. So speaking of agencies, Bo and Olivia, how are you finding new customers? How are you transitioning them into retainers and keeping them happy, right? Services is tough. I've been there. We've got lots of agency folks here. Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, I find that it takes years to develop the confidence to ask for the relationship that you want, and I think that was the sort of biggest journey that we went on, and making the mistakes, being screwed over, doing the wrong things over and over again was what really led us to having the confidence to then start saying, we're okay to stay small for a little while. We've been big. We've been twice our size before. We're actually making the same profit now as we did when we were twice our size. And I think the testament to that is seeking out the relationships we want, having the confidence to sit down and talk to that merchant and say, hey, look, not in an arrogant way, not in a dismissive way, but to say, this is the way we work. There are other people that you can work with if you don't like the sound of what I'm saying. But I think, a lot of that, when you talk about the retainer model specifically, is that we go into every new pitch with that as being automatic, and not required. We do say to them, you don't have to take this, but you really shouldn't work with us unless you want to do it long term. If you think you're going to go away with this and then suddenly you'll be upset if you don't get the same results as what we gave to build. We built something for you. Let us help you make that great. And we have that conversation, and it's a 100% hit rate. When we have that conversation up front, they will continue. And then we let our internal sales team to sort of expand on that. We do have an internal sales team who deal with retainers specifically. Actually, I should say team. By team, I mean an account manager for each client. And that account manager's responsibility is to then say, okay, well, what are other merchants doing? What success in your sector are other merchants achieving? And then how can I make suggestions along the way? So you have to then expand that. It's not enough to do, okay, well, here's your minimum retainer. If that merchant doubles in size, it makes sense to double that retainer. And I think we spoke about this yesterday, Rhys, is people look at marketing as a percentage of total cost. And it seems natural, right? I'm going to spend 20% of my revenue on marketing. No one says I'm going to spend X% of my revenue on platform. It's really weird. Like we've started talking to them like that in our meetings. We say, okay, so what percentage of your GMV are you going to spend on platform? And they really don't know what to say initially, so we sort of help them along. We say, okay, well, if you're an X $1 million merchant, let's start at 1 or 2%, which is actually a pretty decent retainer to start with. So that's how we got there, really. We started having really logical conversations that seemed like, oh, well, that makes sense. And that got us where we are,
Yeah, it's basically the same, and I think a lot of it is also personality for us. We have this human culture where we decided to be small by design, and very much the name of our agency is a mix between my name and Michael. And originally we thought, okay, we might start out with 10, 15 people. We originally wanted to have a 360 agency, do everything, and then we realized, shit, we can't be excellent at everything. We can be good at many things, but we can't be excellent at everything. So we decided to specialize in two things, which are Shopify and Createur. And I think that's why people are really coming to us. We're lucky enough also to be the very first, agency in France to be Shopify specific, solely Shopify to pick, to bet on that horse. But I think really choosing what our specialty was and being the authority, the expert in that field, so that nobody can think of anybody else's name other than ours when they think of Shopify and Createur. Basically, an agency that does both of these things really, really well, I think, instead of trying to do everything all at once.
That's right. I love that. There's a really good book actually called Discipline of Market Leaders. And if folks from the agency land haven't read that, I'd highly encourage you to. And in fact, I know the Reload crew, a lot of their business is structured around that. And you can't be cheap, fast, and good, right? And so picking that positioning, aligning operationally to better support that, having that cultural alignment with clients, just so critical. And so one thing I often see is a bit of a disconnect between developers and merchant needs, right? And so I'd love for you all to tell us a little bit about how are you really getting to the crux of what the merchant needs, which is often different to what the merchant wants. And so, Bo, I might start with you. Give us a little bit of a rundown from your side.
I think nominating someone as a solutions architect is the first step. Find the person who's got talent for bridging that gap. There is going to be that person who's got an engineering mind but started off in client services, or the other way around, where they're an engineer but they're actually people. I know it's weird, but so there are some engineers who are great people, and then those people can then bridge that gap. So they connect those two people. So you go, okay, well, I'm gonna first ask the merchant, as you say, what they want. I then sometimes have to have that negotiation to explain to them what they actually need. Do that before you start bothering developers with pie in the sky ideas. So then the next step is you qualify that request. You say, okay, this makes sense. You get some buy-in, and then you take that qualified request to a developer in a way that makes sense in your own language. Because I find too often that people filter sales and marketing talk or dream talk straight through to the development team and expect to get back what they want. I'm a developer. That was my first love. I'm a logical person. If you send me something illogical and dreamy, you know, I'll try to give you what you want, but truthfully, the way I work best is in an if this then that environment, right? So if this happens, I want this to happen. If you're this kind of customer, I'd like to send you down this path, and this is what I expect as a result. And that's an acceptance criteria. So we boil it down into really key terms. So we use things like outcomes, acceptance criteria. We use them over and over again. They become our mantra. And then as long as you fulfill these needs, then we call that a success. You say that you can then take that back to the client and say, hey, look, this is what we see we've checked off. You said you wanted this. That's a success, right? And they'll almost always agree. So yeah, that's our end-to-end process, and it works really well. That solutions architect is so important. Yeah.
I love that, though. It's really, really great. Just to piggyback on that, I think that for us it would be, again, just goals, looking at the merchant goals and just breaking it down into small pieces, because what oftentimes happens is that there's going to be, you know, this sense of, we want our website to be prettier. Okay, but why do you want it to be prettier? What does that mean, you know, aesthetically pleasing? You'll notice that when it comes to luxury houses, you know, as I mentioned earlier, like Chanel, the website's so pretty. Do you want to buy anything on it? No, because it's hell to use. But it's, you know, breaking it down. Why do you want to make it pretty? And really what it comes down to is breaking it down into small, achievable pieces that, you know, can show you direct or non-direct return on investment. And all the while, you know, just without the sense of emergency as well, because that will happen also, just like really educating people and challenging. I think challenge is key word here. Our clients oftentimes tell us, you always keep saying no to us. And we're like, yes, because, you know, here's another way of thinking about it. Here's one way that you can break this down into other pieces. So I think challenging and educating.
Yeah. And Shashank, I know Amit earlier, actually, during his talk, he was saying that one of his early lessons was not understanding the customer's needs enough. And so how did you do it from an app perspective with PushOwl?
So in my case, I think my mind have just got a little extreme. You know, I was like reading through all these Facebook groups, you know, all these conversations about merchants. So I remember back in those days, there was this 80-year-old lady who was trying to move from Etsy to Shopify. So I just spent a few hours just trying to solve her problems. So it wasn't about push notification at all, because you want to understand what their real problem space is, because either as an app developer or an agency, you're only solving a small, narrow scope. So I think just understanding how a merchant works. In fact, I flew down to Mumbai and lived with a merchant his entire day. Like, you know, like I had breakfast with him, had office. And then I figured, where in this whole 24 hours or even in a week does your entire problem statement fit in? So that allows you to learn the merchant lingo and problem statement. So just like spending time with the merchants and like, you know, and forgetting that you are an app developer solving a particular problem just gives you that whole 360-degree perspective. And also, of course, then as your app starts growing, you'll start getting these feedbacks. Hey, you want to build this, but also you need to remember you're serving for the world, and some of the feedbacks might be just localized to a particular region or a particular use case. So you need to get these feedbacks, but ensure that you're serving your larger clients. So you have to start saying no. Then also when you have these requests coming very urgently, then you ask these small questions. When was this problem? When did you face this problem last time? And you suddenly realize that maybe just because it's easy to type and give a feedback, people give feedback for the heck of a feedback. So you get to know whether how urgent that problem is. You ask these questions like, okay, now that you had this problem, how did you try to solve it in some other way? So, and this gives you more perspective into the problem space. And that's how you zero down whether this needs to be built within your app and built for all. So I think it's just more asking the right questions helps you build the right product at the end of the day.
I love that. Merchant empathy, right? Like really getting to the crux. So I promise we're going to come to the audience really soon for some questions. So if you have some questions bubbling away, keep them up there for a couple minutes longer. So I've got a bit of a fun question for you all to finish on. If you were Toby, Shopify's CEO for the day, what would you do? And Olivia, I know you mentioned a Lamborghini earlier. I'm with you on that. But no, what would you do for the day if you were Toby? We might start with you, Olivia.
How dare you tell everyone? No, I would go about, so this might be a bit of a controversial one, but I would ban drop shipping. I think within the context of, climate change and everything, I would go about and say, these are products that they're not really contributing to anything. And we had this discussion earlier about, what does it mean for, Shopify to go carbon neutral on some orders and everything. But for me, drop shipping would be the first thing to ban in terms of what's happening right now in the world. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I think, we're talking about this a bit off stage, but drop shipping is definitely a really good entry point into commerce, right? And so a lot of people learn a ton from it. But Bo, Shashank, I'd love to hear what you would do if you were Toby.
Yeah, I mean, the purely business dry sense, I think I'd solidify the app ecosystem. I think there was a need for growth for a long time. I think Shopify's done a really good job in creating a competitive advantage around that app ecosystem, incentivize it. As we know, recently there's the incentive of not having to actually pay out any commissions for the first $1 million. That's a great incentive to get started. But then one of the things, I was talking to a lot of app developers in the last couple of days, and they tell me that their biggest route to consumer, i.e. the merchants, is actually agencies. That's their number one sales proposition. It's funny how little we actually communicate though on the technology side of things. We get contacted by all sorts of salespeople, and a lot of agency people will tell you, I know that a lot of you salespeople have trouble getting through to agency buyers because there's so much deluge of information. I guess the advice I would give them, if I was Toby, I'd say focus on the power of the app ecosystem. Sit down for a while. Don't build so hard into building more apps, but ask app developers to build better apps, and to talk to their agencies and create connections between agencies and app developers on creating a better platform for them. And we can see a turning point now in what's happening with hydrogen and oxygen. I feel like that's going to become a commoditized platform. At the moment, it's an edge case. It's for big merchants. It's for people who are trying to cut new ground. But I think very soon that will probably be the status quo. So to work with that as an app developer, you need to think beyond just the one-click theme install. And if I was Toby, I'd be trying to push that as the focus of Shopify's expansion, because I still feel like that's a place where merchants can get a bit lost. What was it? I think Shopify, is it the average of 18 apps still?
I think from Bronte's presentation, it was about 6 per store.
6 now, okay.
Yeah, but obviously it does go up.
Right,
The more complexity
that might be
that
plus,
exists.
actually. Yeah,
and it could vary across markets too, right?
So, but people install a lot of apps, right? So making them work would be my priority. Yeah.
I think a lot of developers can relate. Just a better partner dashboard, because this is a pain point I faced during the acquisition. We just don't have the right numbers in our dashboard, because we are a supercharged SaaS app, right? So you need to know the churn. Where are your customers coming from? So probably if the partner dashboard can be improved a bit, what kind of Shopify stores are using your app? Like, is it are these enterprise customers or Shopify Plus, or are these smaller merchants which are finding more value? So a little bit more insights on that. And if the partner dashboard can be supercharged to work with agencies, and because a lot of times your apps are being used by agencies and not actually the merchants. If you have more visibility, knowing that, these are the agencies which are using an app, it just can even lead to warm intros just through the dashboard itself. So there is a whole bunch of tooling and stuff which can be done on the partner dashboard, which can make the whole connection between and just like running a SaaS company on Shopify much more easier. So.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, we might go to the audience. I think we've got some mic runners around. We've got an early question here, so feel free to throw your hand up.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I learned a lot from it. I guess my first question is, what is the relationship you have between agencies and app developers? And is there a win-win situation between, working with an agency as an app developer for me? What would take me to entice you to partner up?
I mean, yeah, I'm happy to kick that off. Yeah, so it's a great question, really, because there's so many people. I'm sure, it's on the tip of your tongue. How do I get through? How do I get a response to that email? Because I know that I'm really sorry. We do ignore you a lot.
I know. I'm so sorry.
And I think, I mean, again, sometimes we're just so inundated, right? But it's such a good question, because what I look for specifically, the thing that stands out that makes me want to try it, I think aesthetics are really important, believe it or not. Like, I do actually read and click those emails, even if I don't respond to them. So the first thing I look for is I click through, I look at it, and first impressions are important. If you've got a slick app that looks slick, that straight away tells me that you've got attention to detail. You care about how you present yourself. That matters first. That's my first impression, because I don't have time to look into your engineering yet. That's going to tell me your mindset. I was actually speaking to Matt from Makendo about this at length last night, and that was the thing that I told him when they reached out to me initially a long time ago, when they were just two of them. That's what enticed me to speak to them further. So that's one. Merchant support. So merchants are going to reach out to you directly, and they're going to want to ask questions. How great is your support to them? That instead of working through us as a conduit, and merchants are sometimes going to ask us, hey, what's going on with this app? We then want to be able to talk to someone at your end, preferably not a customer service drone, but someone who deals with agencies, to say, hey, we've got a merchant who really is coming through us. And also a set of people who will really care. Shashank, you mentioned customer service. We are so focused ourselves on that, quick response, communicative. If you can't solve the problem straight away, at least communicate and get back to them. And number 3 is the robustness. We want to have some control over, I've spoken a bit to a lot of people about what happens with content for header. I know a lot of people are sick of hearing it, but give us the option of where and when we load your app as a theme developer. If you're just injecting every piece of junk that you need, that you think a merchant needs, and we can't control it, that affects our performance. Yep. So when a merchant comes to us and says, hey, fix my store, it's slow, and we've got a whole bunch of apps stringing themselves into a place where we can't control it, then we look at you as actually as a culprit rather than an assistant. So those 3 areas, I think, are the places where we'd ask you to lead in with. If you're going to make a sales proposition, tell us how you solve those 3 problems, and we're really going to start talking to you.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Another thing that might get a bit overlooked is how well your documentation is done, because that's what we're going to look at as agencies first and foremost. Like, we'll look obviously at the UI and everything, how easy it is to use, but sometimes our merchants, they'll want to have a hand on it so that they don't always call us, because it depends on, if they're on a retainer or not with us, do they pay by the minute or not? So sometimes they'll want to look into it, and what we're going to do is also look into the documentation. How easy is it? Can we use it? Can they use it? It might be a bit overlooked, but documentation is another thing that I would think of, for instance.
Shashank, anything from your side?
Yeah, I think similarly, I think giving a priority support to agencies is really, really important. So we create these Slack channels so that we understand, they are probably a proxy to a merchant needs, and you want to reduce the cycle times or the time duration between a merchant gets a response. So ensuring they have a priority support, we do that. The other thing we do is ensure that the agencies have real case studies which they can present to the clients. We also try to give them probably a 1-pager document which can go into the proposals, etc. The other thing we also try to work with agencies is like we give them an extended duration of trials to work them. This also allows them to pitch if they're really one of our evangelists, and a merchant needs might be, they're just setting up a store, they're thinking about product themes, etc. And your app might be a priority, but not right now, maybe 3 months down the line. So ensuring you give them that enough time so they can understand. Though I think the agencies appreciate that, that kind of understanding, the empathy that you forward. So I think these are the few things which are specific only to the agency, and you might not have a 3 months trial on a public on the App Store, but you can do that specifically by an agency, and those strategies usually work great.
Yeah. I also, if I may add, I also love case studies. If you can show me what you've done for other people, I will eat that up.
Yes.
Funny actually, Shashank, I worked with Felix from your team initially,
Seriously?
right? So, and he was excellent. He was very persistent.
Yes.
But
In a good way. In a good way. Sorry.
in a good way. And I'll tell you why. Every time, he didn't just sort of like, again, there's one thing unfortunately I really hate is when I know I'm on an email string, you know, there's that follow-up email that sounds like, oh, hey, you may not have read my first email. And I know it's part of a 3 or 4 stage automated email. I know that you've pressed the button and that's now sort of staging those emails. What Felix did really well is that he'd follow up, but then I responded. I said, hey, look, this is my issue. I don't really have a lot of time. And he goes, you know what I'll do? Why don't I just onboard them? Why don't I present straight to the merchant? Instead of trying to sell to you right now, do you have anyone who might need to do this? And I said, actually, you know what I do? I don't have time to look at it. I think it looks good. Have a talk to them. And then as part of that, I actually introduced you guys to almost all of our merchants. And that process where the onboarding really worked for them. They were sort of, you had someone introduce it. And I don't believe anyone ever uninstalled PushOwl in that process, because now it's an intrinsic part of their marketing program. But being onboarded onto that by the app developer, helping us, instead of just saying, hey, can you sell our app for us? Akendo did this really well. Again, thanks guys, I keep mentioning them. But you know, there's a reason for that, is that the app developer who provides us the support that we need to answer the questions and to give value to the merchant, then you know it's a partnership. That's a real partnership. We hear the word partnership a lot. Rather than using us as a de facto sales team, actually create a partnership. It's really welcome.
Fantastic. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We are over. So huge thank you to everyone. We've got one more. Yeah. Okay. We can do one more question. Who's going to be the lucky one to finish? There we go. Scott.
Thanks. It was just a bit more adding to what you were saying there. One of the things that we really value is the connection and consistent communication once you've established that partnership, and be available for the agencies. You know, if we've got a problem, one of our, especially as Plus partners, one of the things we sort of say is that we have direct contact with the app developers, and we have a personal relationship with it. So that positions us it very well in the marketplace compared to other people. So be available if we've got an issue or we need to talk to you. Respond really quickly and help us out, because that will really strengthen the partnership.
Yep, totally. Awesome. Well, we might wrap up there. Huge shout out for our panel. Thanks, everyone.